X Soldier brings you today's video. Tannuk Steadfast Second allows all our other creatures to have haste and allows us also to play artifacts and creatures for a warp cost of 3. That means we cast them for a discounted cost, but they do get exiled at the end step. We can at least cast them from exile on a later turn though. So we want to be keeping our hand full and making sure that we can warp a bunch of stuff into play and get various effects. Some of those effects being card advantage of course, because like I said we want to keep our hand full. So the various different means of doing that, as you would expect, something like the One Ring is good because we can just cantrip it straight away and get protection for the turn, and then we don't have to worry about the bird encounter on the previous turn. We can actually have protection twice with it because we get to cast it from exile as well, like I said. Then there's big creatures to cheat in as well, so Atali can swing in straight away thanks to the haste. The haste on our commander makes a big difference. They're not all ETBs, I didn't rely on Panharmonicon. In this list we've got some attack triggers as well. Trumpeting Carnosaur is one of those ETBs though, gets us a free spell immediately. A wheel with Dragon Mage that will get our opponent's hand full as well, but if we're desperate to draw then hitting our opponent in the air for 5 and wheeling is going to be useful to us. Combustible Gear Hulk is probably going to be a lot of damage. It's likely in this deck more than any other that you're going to get the card draw from this, because there's every chance your opponent gets hit for like 15 off the damage. Sandstone Oracle, again once your hand is full, likely refill it with this. Maelstrom Colossus is just a cantrip, but cascade into something reasonably big is more than likely because this costs 8 mana. Then we've got some rocks as well. Obviously these are artifacts, so we can cheat these down, tap them for mana straight away, and then make use of that mana to do other warp effects. So that will be worth keeping in mind before it gets exiled. And if they can do something upon entry, then even better. Either draw 2 cards or kill something off with the Might Stone and Weak Stone. The Coveted Jewel, again, can tap for 3 mana straight away, so pay for another warp cost. And it draws 3 cards when it enters. We could even just leave this in exile after it's entered, so that our opponents can't steal it from us and get card draw and more mana themselves. And then the rest are rummage / wheel effects. So Brass's Tunnel Grinder, this is actually one where we actually do care about the other side of it being transformed. Whenever you cast a spell with it, discover X, where X is the mana value, so when we're casting things from exile, those are big spells and we're likely to get into other free big spells off this. Valakut Awakening, an instant speed wheel, Wheel of Fortune, same as the Dragon Mage, refills our opponent's hand as well. And then we've got things like Cavalier Flame. This isn't quite as good, it's a rummage effect. I can't remember if I've got any graveyard interaction in here, I suppose we'll find out together. But rummage a bunch of cards away that you don't care about, draw into new stuff, similar to Clive, although Clive's a hell of a lot better because we can empty our hand, get a bunch of red pips into play for the devotion. Bear in mind we're cheating in Combustible Gear Hulks and Carnosaurs, Dragons, Cavaliers, things like that. So get the devotion up at a heavily discounted rate and completely refill your hand. So all of these things are going to work in tandem together so that we've actually got cards to warp into play. But we do want to be ramping a hell of a lot as well, because even though we have a high curve in this list and we don't mind drawing into the powerful creatures and the like, because we can easily play them for 3 mana, we do want to still be playing them from exile for even more advantage, so getting into the regular rocks is going to be a good thing for us. Ruby Medallion, along with the Fire Crystal, discounts our spells, our red spells in particular, by 1. And that's relevant because with Warp it does count as a cast. So if you're going for Atali or something like that, it will cost only 2 to warp it into play, as opposed to the 3. Meaning you can just get even more warps on the go. Cursed Mirror, once you've warped in your Clive or whatever it is, you can have this enter as a copy of it and get the ETB again. Glittering Stockpile, get it down early enough, it can make a bunch of treasure. A lot of it is pretty typical stuff to be honest. Scampering Surveyor, one that I don't really see anyone play, but in decks like this it's good. You can get double duty with stuff like this and the Solemn Simulacrum. Warp them into play in order to get a rampant growth. It'll get exiled and then there's nothing to stop you casting it again next turn. Any land ramp that you can get your hands on in mono red is going to be appreciated. Thran Dynamo and Gilded Lotus, near enough pay for the ward. Similar with Goldspan Dragon, if you get this down for 3 mana, swing in with it, you've made a treasure token that taps for 2, so that near enough pays for itself as well, at least for a turn. Throne of Eldraine, card advantage, and the same thing, pays for its own ward effect. Then with cards like Ancient Copper Dragon and the Cavern Horde Dragon, you can spit a bunch of treasure tokens into play. These are good in any types of decks really. The downside of Ancient Copper Dragon is that it doesn't tend to survive an entire turn cycle, but we've got haste available to us with this commander, so it's likely that this thing is going to enter with haste, hit someone for a lot, and make a lot of treasure tokens. If you've got the Goldspan Dragon in play, they'll tap for even more mana. Got some interesting removal as well. A Braid and Chaos Warp are pretty typical. Duplicant for 3 mana, exiles a creature, play it again the next turn, it can exile another creature. Drakuseth deals damage all over the place, a couple of lightning bolts and a flame slash, as well as 7 damage in the air of course, can't forget all this damage that we'll be dealing with the haste. Meteor Golem, any non-land permanent. Cityscape Leveler is any non-land permanent as well. Trades it out for a Power Stone. In a lot of decks it's not likely they'll do much with that Power Stone mana, and of course this is an 8/8 trample, so we'll get the attack trigger on this also, so we actually blow up 2 things in a turn with this after we've warped it in. When Myojin enters, it's a 7/4 for 3 mana. We might as well remove the indestructible counter from it after we've attacked, assuming that it doesn't have 4 damage markers on it, after which we will be able to throw 3 lots of 7 damage at various targets. As for the board wipes, we've got plenty of control there as well. Balefire Dragon, hit a player, deal 6 damage to all their stuff. Extinguish a Battleship is a new one from this set. Destroy a non-creature permanent and then 4 damage to each creature. Our commander does have 5 toughness, so it can survive the Extinguish a Battleship. And this is really easy to crew as well. Warp something into play, something like the Myojin. That can crew this straight away, and it's a flying trample 10/10. Blasphemous Act and obviously include and Portal 2 Phyrexia. If we have managed to hardcast big things like Balefire Dragon, Drakuseth and the like, then we can reanimate them with Portal after the Edicts as well. And then finally, for the Wraths, Chandra's Ignition deals damage to each opponent and each of their creatures, equal to the power of a creature. So point this at a big creature and deal a bunch of damage basically. Noteworthy that it is the creature and not the sorcery that's dealing damage, and that is relevant with something like Blightsteel Colossus, which has Infect. So that would be 11 Infect damage to all your opponents and their creatures, withering them down to nothing. Each of these individual cards is really good in the deck on their own as well, which is the best cards to include in combos typically, but that's definitely one that's worth noting. Blightsteel Colossus could knock someone out of the game out of nowhere. So that's pretty much the deck really. It's quite a simple one. There is some Exile Matters stuff, so playing things from Exile. Passionate Archaeologist, whenever we do that, your commander deals damage equal to the spell's mana value to a target opponent. Just an easy way of mounting up some more damage. Now Feshni makes a copy of our stuff that we cast from Exile, so getting more ETBs, more attack triggers, stuff like that. It's a little bit win more, but it's thematic for the deck. Then Charred Foyer and Warped Space. Get an impulse draw at the beginning of the turn, but more importantly, the 6 mana side of the door here is once each turn you can pay 0 rather than the mana cost for a spell you cast from Exile, so this is going to be well worth the investment. Play this for 6 mana instead of paying 10 mana for something from Exile, and you can immediately cast something for 0. If it sticks in play for any length of time, then you can obviously do that every single turn for the rest of the game as long as this sticks around. Then finally we can actually dodge the exile effects altogether on certain creatures and artifacts. If we've got Sundial of the Infinite, we can wait for those exile triggers to go on the stack and then just end the turn immediately, and that means that we've just warped a bunch of stuff into play for a massive discount, and we actually get to keep them once the triggers have been removed from the stack. Conjurer's Closet, a similar thing. It can only do it on one creature, so it can't do it to artifacts, it certainly can't do it to all the creatures at the end of the turn, but you can flicker your best one and regain the ETB, or whatever it is that you are looking to protect it for. So yeah, reasonably simple one. Like I said, I didn't really think much of this when I first saw it in spoilers, but it's actually a very potent deck, and, well, cheating massive things into play for very little mana with haste is good. So maybe should have worked that one out as soon as I read it, but let's try and prove it. A 3-lander to start off with, a mini wheel with the Valakut Awakening, and some card advantage with Jeska's Will, so it'd be nice to be ramping earlier on, but we can go slow I think. And drawing into Blasphemous Act allows us more time as well. We can wipe the board if needs be. I'm playing a basic here in the hope that we won't have to play the Awakening as a tap land, but we'll have to get that out before our commander if we don't get into more lands. Up against Korvold, by the way, along with partners Vile Smasher and Sadar. And then there is Narsi Fablesinger as well. I think I've only come up against this once. And we do get into another land, so that's the double red that we need. A Charismatic Conqueror from the partner player, which is going to be particularly good against us because obviously we want to warp a lot of artifacts into play. A Kalain Reclusive Painter, going to start making some treasure tokens for Korvold, so we'll assume it's a typical treasure deck. And the Charismatic Conqueror does care about tokens as well, which is why this is so good. Korvold deciding to bring both the permanents in tapped though, to keep that thing under control. Alright, Ruby Medallion's nice because we are actually casting the spells from our hand for the warp cost, so the medallion will discount them. Gives us something to do this turn as well. Not sure if we're going to be going straight in for our commander next turn. Narsi Fablesinger is the first commander tip play. Ideally we'd see a few of those in a row, ready for this board wipe. Atsushi for the treasure player enters with a plus counter. A Clive for us here. Maybe should have gone for the tap land last turn, seeing as how we didn't do anything with the third mana, because red mana's a bit weird at the minute. We could make 6 mana potentially with Jeska's Will, which means we'd have 7, but I'm liking some of the cards that are in hand at the moment, so let's try just getting down the commander. We don't seem to need a board wipe too desperately at the moment. I will play the tap land. Decided on playing the land as a wheel one because of red mana, like I said, but we've just drawn into Clive as well. And we'll tap down the commander because of the Conqueror also. Summon Ixion is going to exile a creature, probably ours, which would encourage me to go for the Blasphemous Act soon. So I'm actually going to put our commander underneath the Ixion here. If we just see one more creature, as long as we keep the medallion, we'll be able to play this for 1 mana as well, which means we will easily be able to warp something into play afterwards. The Lifelinker goes for commander damage in the middle. Comet, Stellar Pup, and they roll a 6-sided dice. End up rolling a 6 with that, so it's +1. You may activate the ability 2 more times this turn, which is what they go for. Roll a 3 that time, followed by rolling a 1. Return a card, mana value 2 or less from graveyard to hand, that does nothing. And then a couple of squirrel tokens with haste have entered play with that as well. What a weird planeswalker. The Charismatic Conqueror swinging in towards the Jund player, and for whatever reason he decides to give up on the Kalain. Big Score makes a couple more treasure tokens, ignoring the Walker, and Atsushi swings straight down the middle. Another land for us, I don't mind seeing. We'll get the mounting count up as much as we can and try to land a 1 mana Blasphemous Act, successfully wiping the board. Our commander re-enters play from underneath the Ixion, and Atsushi is going to make treasure tokens as we assumed it would. And now, thanks to the Ruby Medallion and our warp ability costing 2, we could go for Jeska's Will, but we won't be able to warp from Exile, so I think I'll hold on to that for now, the problem being that our opponents lose cards in hand potentially. Let's go for the Goldspan Dragon. Don't think I'm going to be warping Clive into play. We could go for the Sandstone Oracle, but I'd like to make the treasure first so that we can get some additional mana, because that will make it so that we can warp more things. So it means that the Walker sticks around, but our opponents aren't swinging in at it anyway, so hopefully we'll be able to keep flyers in play enough to get rid of that thing. Make a treasure that will tap for 2 mana, which is all we need for the warp. Knocking that down to 3 loyalty. Let's make... yeah, I'm going to go for the Jeska's Will here. Might be a waste, but we might also get into rocks and stuff. Worst case scenario, it gives us more mana. So point that at the Enchantress player, who's stuck on 3 lands at the moment, has 5 cards in hand though. And let's have a look. Well, there's Lightning Greaves. Missing out on the Dragon Mage, unfortunately. Unless we want to hardcast that. Let's add some additional mana with the Nykthos. We've got Devotion of 4 at the moment. And yeah, that will allow us to do both, so yeah, let's get out the Dragon Mage. Actually, didn't pan out too horribly for us. And with the Warp, this goes into Exile, ready for us to potentially cast it next turn. It's probably worth doing because it would cost 4 mana and then make 2 immediately. Not to mention adding to the Devotion. There's a Demolition Field we need to consider with the Nykthos. First a Sanctum Weaver though. I have a feeling getting the Shroud onto our commander was definitely relevant with the Enchantress player who would have a lot of pacifism effects. Alright, the middle player just decides to give up. Stormshriek Feral is a flying haste 3-3 with expensive fire breathing. So is there a dragon sub-theme to this? I'm assuming the Jund player doesn't have any spot removal, or he did have the mana for removing Tannuk in response to the equip and he didn't do it. So I assume that he would have done. And we drew into Trumpeting Carnosaur, which is just more card advantage for us, plenty of it in the deck. Actually, I'm in a position where I don't want to swing in with this, which is a bit weird because I don't want to refill my opponent's hands at the moment and we can keep ours full, which obviously puts us at an advantage. Now, it is a later turn. Am I missing something with Warped? You may cast the card from your hand for its warp cost, exile the permanent at the beginning of the next end step. Yes, that's been done. Then you may cast it from exile on a later turn. It is a later turn. And it won't let me cast it. It's warped. Am I just not understanding something? Alright, whatever. I'll get down the Trumpeting Carnosaur. We'll try and warp that and see what happens. I was hoping for the additional mana on the Goldspan Dragon. And we'll discover 5, so definitely getting a free spell, which is a Soul Ring, some more mana for us. Might as well cast that without paying the cost. And then we can draw some cards with the Sandstone Oracle. Not sure I would have done that had it not have been for the Soul Ring just now, but we might as well draw some cards. So I'll just choose, both players have mana held up, so they could lose a card from hand. Decide against it though. Coveted Jewel. We've got Devotion of 6, so we can go for Nykthos here. Get this down for 2 mana, and then tap it for 3. And I actually don't mind this being warped away because it means that our opponents can't steal it from us. Oh, Coveted Jewel, it actually costs 3 mana because it's not a red spell. This specifically states red spells, the Ruby Medallion. And obviously the colourless spell isn't that. We'll still draw cards and tap it for 3 though. Alright, and get into some mana. Cavern Horde Dragon with a bunch of treasure in play is good. We'll just hard cast that, should be fine. So we are out of mana, apart from the Coveted Jewel. So I think we're okay to swing in here. Again, I'm going to hold back the Dragon Mage, but no reason not to swing in with everything else. So spread the damage around a little bit. The dragons, and well, the dragon and the dinosaur can go into the right. Might not make any mana. I think we have to connect with the Cavern Horde Dragon. Yeah, when it deals combat damage, create treasure. See if they want to give up on this creature or not. And yeah, I think that's the right move, making a block. Oh, but it has trample, which I forgot about, so it still gets to make some treasure here, which means we continue to be obnoxious. Tap down the jewel for red mana. Let's hardcast our rocks. And then I'm a bit paranoid about Magic Online being broken with warp, so I think I'm just going to play this for 5 mana, and we'll refill our hand while we've got the chance. So we discard our hand, draw equal to devotion of 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. Definitely say yes. Alright, and we're looking pretty damn good there. So away goes our stuff to the warp. That'd be a real shame if I can't get the warp working here. I'm hoping I'm not just completely screwing up the video by not understanding something. Yeah, because it says Exile Zone can be played here, but this little window disappeared during my turn. Anyway, Eldest Reborn. Sack a creature or planeswalker of your choice. To be honest, I don't think the Dragon Mage is as good anymore, so just get rid of that. Paid 6 mana for it previously, just for it to eat an edict. Oh, and that's weird. Goldspan Dragons jumped into the window now as well. And there's the Damnation that we were half expecting. That's why I wanted to refill the hand the first chance we got, so Commander back in the command zone. We've done very well accelerating for the past few turns, so not too worried about mana. And both of our opponents are down to a few cards in hand. I think the Mana Geyser is going to come in handy, especially when he taps out his lands like that. And down comes Korvold. There is a couple of treasure tokens left in play. So round to our turn, we've got the window available here. Oh, now we can cast things. Alright. So maybe I was doing something wrong before. I think we definitely want a land for the turn, obviously. Just drawn into Duplicant. Do we want to get our commander down and carry on warping stuff? Let's go Mana Geyser first of all. That allows us to float 12 mana. So we'll go for the Goldspan Dragon which still costs us 4, even though it's been played from Exile. Trumpeting Carnosaur, just for the sake of getting more devotion into play, should be fine, I think. And again, we get to discover 5 whenever it enters, which shows us a Professional Facebreaker for more treasure mana. And that's good with the haste. I want to start concentrating on this guy because I think he's going to be more of a threat, but we can send the Professional Facebreaker to the left to get both the treasure that we're able to get here. Play Tannuk again. Hardly played any cards from our hand at the moment. Try and get Shroud and Haste onto that. It gives other creatures haste, not itself. Okay, and that player just decides to give up. Oh, and then we weren't allowed to play cards from Exile when that player quit. Did you see that? So they've obviously programmed it in some really weird way. Yeah, okay. We're just making all our opponents scoop. I mean, you can use your imagination there. I mean, you don't really have much of a choice. But I probably would have played the Coveted Jewel there to draw 3 more cards, and it pays for itself because it just taps down for 3 mana again straight away. Yeah, draw into Passionate Archaeologist. It's a shame that we drew into that after playing things from Exile. But yeah, that gives us a very good idea of what we want to do with this commander. Keep your hand full, play cards from your hand, which then go on to put even more cards in your hand. You can control the board, play your cards that care about you playing things from Exile, and just generally chain off like that. Mono Red has got very, very good at drawing cards. It is wheel and rummage effects that tend to be the best. But yeah, as we saw there, just continuing to keep your hand full and use ritual effects for the mana and cheat your costs altogether with Warp. I mean, yeah, you can obviously see how it would have gone had we have continued to play that out. As it stands, assuming our opponents couldn't do anything, we just go in and batter them in the red zone. They had time to draw into more board wipes and stuff, but keeping us down with regards to mana isn't something that they were going to be able to do, seemingly. And with all the card advantage in the deck, that just means that we can carry on doing what we were doing. So maybe it was a foregone conclusion. Who knows? Who cares? Hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you want to see more from this Mono Red Tannuk deck, then let me know. Having a lot of trouble getting games with this new set for whatever reason. Luckily the patrons are here to save the day. Massive thank you to them for their financial support of the channel, keeping me independent, which keeps me from trying to sell you stuff. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.